If you're looking to build a shed or a small cabin, a floating foundation is a great way to build something without having to worry about pouring a concrete pad or digging pylons below the frost line. In this shed build series, I'll show you how I prepped and leveled the ground, built the foundation, and then I'll show you how I framed the walls, including how to frame for a door and how to frame for windows. And if you stick around, I'll show you how you can save up to 70% on all the lumber for a project like this. No tricks, no gimmicks. Here's a hint. It has something to do with purple wood.
The benefit to a floating foundation is that there's not a lot of digging, so I only need my smallest excavator. I'm just messing with you. I hate it when people make DIY YouTube videos and then bring out heavy equipment. No, today we're digging it by hand. A few weeks ago, I measured out for a 10 by 12 shed in a nice shady corner of my backyard. Something big enough to store the tractor, the snowblower, some tools, a couple naughty children, you know. I do some preliminary marking out where my blocks will go, where my walls will end up, where the ramp will go. It helps me visualize what I'm about to build. The blocks that the shed will sit on are made of extra concrete that were poured in a bucket. They're not standard, they're not even the same size. But since the ground isn't perfectly flat anyways, we can work around that when it's time to level the foundation. Now where I live, the frost line is about 40 inches deep, and I'm not digging that deep. Instead, I'm only going to go about 12 inches. I'm digging holes for 8 foundation blocks. That'll give the floor plenty of points of contact in case there's ever any frost heave. Now of course, where I'm building the shed used to be an old horseshoe pit, so it's filled with railroad ties and rebar and, you know what? No. For this hole, we're just going to pretend we never saw it. Shh, it's our secret. With all the holes dug, it's time to install our foundation blocks. Since the ground here is unlevel, I want to start on the high side and work my way to the low side. Each hole gets filled with at least 6 inches of paver base. This is a compactable gravel that is also permeable, which makes it very resistant to frost heave. Since we're on the high side, I want the block barely above the ground level. Once I have the block level in both directions, I backfill it with some more paver base and lock it in. This will be the reference height for all the other blocks. So I run a level string line all the way across, and now I know the height that all my other blocks need to be. Now working on the lowest side, you can see that the elevation drops almost 7 inches. So this block is hardly buried at all. With my highest block and my lowest block set, I can come in and set the rest of the blocks in the middle. With a couple wangs and bangs with the rubber mallet, we can get the blocks nice and level. Now this process can take a while, but it's important that you get it right. Everything you build on top of this depends on your foundation being level. Once we're happy with everything level, I'm going to come back with the hose and wash everything down. This helps get the stone dust into the cracks and kind of locks it in. Now a foundation like this is not stronger than the forces of nature. Frost heave could still move these blocks, but I still have a couple tricks up my sleeve to cut down on frost heave. Now it's time to turn our attention to the floor. The floor is built from pressure-treated 2x6s. I cut my rim joist down to 12 foot and then marked them 16 inches on center for framing. For 16 inch on center framing, I like to make my mark at 16 and then 2 more marks at 15 1/4 and 16 3/4. This gives you nice reference lines to line up your boards, and it makes sure that your 16 point is always at the center of your board. To assemble the floor, I'm using 3.5 inch hot dip galvanized nails. Now it's important to remember hot dip galvanized because you can't put normal nails in pressure treated lumber. Now you could do this with screws, but screws are expensive, and man, nail guns are fun. For 2x6 lumber, they get 3 nails. Now if you don't have a nail gun, you can absolutely do this with a hammer and nails. But hopefully, you're better with a hammer than I am. Okay. With the framing for the floor done, it's our last chance to do any sort of groundwork around the foundation. I'm using some fill dirt to level out any last low spots and also set a grade to run any water away from the shed. That will also help to keep down frost heave. We set a 4x6 skid on top of the foundation blocks and then lift our floor assembly on top of the skids. Then of some big wangs and bangs, we move the skids into position and get the floor square. We know we're square when each corner measurement measures exactly the same.
Uh-oh. Gravedigger might be done.
Now that the floor is perfectly flat, we can start putting down some sheet goods. But first, I need a little bit of blocking. Longboards like to bow a little bit, so blocking keeps everything nice and straight. For the first layer of the floor, I'm using weather-rated OSB. Since this is a 12-foot long shed, it makes it really easy. I only need full sheets and half sheets. I'm using the same hot dip galvanized nails, but this time only 2 inches. For the second layer, I'm using 1/2-inch pressure treated plywood. This time, I'm installing it 90 degrees perpendicular to the first layer, with the idea that it gives me a little bit more strength. With proper 16 center construction and a little bit of forethought, all your sheet goods will land on a joist.
All right, so how do you save 70% on your lumber? There's no real magic trick to it. It's patience. Almost every piece of my wood is painted purple. What that is called cull lumber. Cull lumber is the lumber that's left over from big box stores like Home Depot or Menards. When they load in their big pallets of 2x4s, everybody goes through and picks out all the good ones and leaves all the crappy ones behind. These are all the crappy ones that people leave behind. And the big secret is they're not that crappy. So just because they have a little bit of wane to them or a warp or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can work around it. If you lay them straight, let them dry out, or sometimes if you just screw a bundle of them together, they'll straighten out. I've got 36 2x4s here, let's say $3 a pop. That puts me at $100. 75% off, that's $25 for almost all of the wood that I need to build the walls. That's a pretty good deal. Now the caveat to it, you're not gonna get all of this wood in one go. You're gonna have to collect it over time. Every time you drive by a Home Depot, pop in, see if there's some 2x4s. So if you're willing to do a little bit of extra work to save a lot of extra money, cull lumber is a great way to build a shed on the cheap. And I am cheap.
It's finally time to start building some walls. I'm starting with the simplest back wall, no windows, no doors. It's just simple 16 center framing for studs. It's a good idea to get all your dumb mistakes out on the wall that doesn't matter. Now when you have straight boards, it goes pretty quick. Occasionally, you're gonna have a twisted board, especially if you buy cull lumber. To fix it, it's not all that hard. All you do is line up the bottom of your board to your line, send a nail through the bottom, then use a pry bar, pry against it and yank it into position, send a few more nails in, and you've got a straight board. An extra 30 seconds of work was worth the 70% off. For shed walls like this, one man can do this no problem. Maybe even a small man, or 2 women, or 3.5 children, 6 dogs, 4.5. For the double window wall, I have 2 36-inch by 36-inch windows I need to build for. These windows have a specific placement, which means they probably won't hit 16 center spacing. So instead, I draw out where my windows need to go and frame around them first. Once my windows are framed in, I can then frame for 16 center. That way, I've got boards for my sheet goods to hit, but also my windows are exactly where I want them. For walls of windows, there's a couple terms you need to know. A jack stud is a shorter stud inside the king stud that supports the header. The rough sill, that's the horizontal board at the bottom of the window opening. The header is two horizontal boards on their side above the window opening that carries the load over the opening down to the jacks. And the cripple studs are the short studs that fill the spaces to keep your 16 on center framing. Now for a wall like this, it's probably a good idea to add some bracing on the sides, so if you do drop it, at least you've got a little bit of help. The third wall, nothing special about it, but the last wall is a door wall with a 6-foot opening that's going to have double doors on it, so it needs to be pretty beefy. Now when you frame one wall inside another wall, like this one, you can't measure 16 on center from the beginning of your board. You have to go all the way out to the outside of the wall, or else your studs will always be 4 inches off. Above the door, I'm building a header out of 2x6s and 1/2-inch plywood. By laminating this all together, we've got a nice strong beam to support all the weight over the door. Now sometimes when you're framing, it's okay to throw in a screw when things don't want to fit together, especially if your boards have twists in them. But remember, screws are expensive, nails are cheap. With all the walls up, it's time to get everything plumb. Once we're there, we'll stitch it all together at the corners with nails. To secure everything in place, I'm putting some big 3-inch screws down through the bottom plate into the joist. The final piece of the puzzle is the double top plate. This board connects each wall together at the corners. With a couple touch-ups and a few last cuts, that wraps up the framing for the walls on the shed. In part 2 of this series, we'll go through sheathing, building the roof, maybe adding some windows. Who knows? There's lots to do. Thanks for watching.